You're watching Budget Travelers Tales, where real travel stories sound completely unbelievable. I'm Erin, and if you think budget travel is all spreadsheets and penny pinching, you're in for a wild ride. Today, I'm sharing 3 stories that pushed my limits and taught me more than any travel guide ever could. From being stranded with just $3, to a late-night couch surfing rescue, to a $1 feast that became the highlight of my trip, you'll want to stick around. These aren't just stories. They're survival sagas, moments you never forget. Whether you're an experienced backpacker or dreaming of your first adventure, these tales prove the best memories come from tight budgets and big risks. Let me set the scene for you. It's late afternoon. The sun is dipping behind a skyline that's nothing like home, and I'm feeling that happy exhaustion you get after a full day of exploring. I reach into my pocket for my wallet and freeze. It's not there. I check my backpack, every zipper, every pocket, gone. All I have left is a crumpled $3 in a foreign currency and a phone with a battery that's barely clinging to life. Panic doesn't even begin to describe what I felt. My mind started racing. Where did I last use it? Was it at the street vendor? Did I leave it at the park? The realization hits. None of that matters right now. I'm stranded. No cash, no cards, no backup. Just me, my fading phone, and $3 that won't even buy a cab ride. The city suddenly feels huge, and for a moment, I'm completely alone. My first instinct is to call someone, anyone, but with only 8% battery left, I need to be smart. I duck into a small grocery shop, hoping to charge my phone, but I don't have an adapter. I show the owner my dying phone and my last $3, hoping he'll let me charge it in exchange. He looks at me, really looks, and just smiles. Without a word, he hands me an old phone charger from behind the counter. "No charge," he says, in a mix of English and gestures. That moment, his kindness, his trust, was the first glimmer of hope. I charge my phone just enough to get a signal and start messaging my bank and a friend who lives in the city. But night is falling, and my friend won't arrive until morning. I have nowhere to go and not enough money for a hostel. So I find the bus station. Bright lights, benches, and people coming and going. I settle in for a long night, clutching my backpack and hugging my knees, doing my best to look like I belong there. Sleep comes in fits and starts. The announcements blare every hour. The hard bench digs into my side. But weirdly, I don't feel scared. I feel grateful. Grateful for that shop owner, for the tiny bit of charge in my phone, for the fact that I'm safe, even if I'm uncomfortable. At one point, a security guard comes over. He asks if I'm okay, and I explain my situation. He just nods and tells me to keep my things close. Another small kindness. Every hour, my anxiety fades just a little, replaced by a strange sense of calm. I'm making it through. The next morning, my friend arrives, waving frantically, and I almost cry when I see her. She brings me breakfast and helps me sort out my bank situation. By noon, I'm back on my feet, wallet replaced, and a little more world-wise. Let me take you to another night, another city, one that's alive with neon lights and endless energy. I arrive late, way later than planned, thanks to a delayed train and a lost taxi driver. My hostel is supposed to be a quick walk from the station, but every street looks the same, and my phone's GPS refuses to cooperate. It's almost midnight, and the city feels less friendly than I hoped. There's a chill in the air, the kind that seeps through your jacket and makes you wish you were anywhere else. I start to worry. I don't speak the language well. My hostel won't pick up the phone, and the streets are emptying fast. I spot a small group of people outside a convenience store, laughing and talking. Maybe they can help, I think. I swallow my pride, put on my best lost traveler smile, and approach. One of them, a young woman named Lena, listens to my story and immediately switches to flawless English. "You're a traveler? Couch surfing?" she asks. I nod and she flashes a grin. "I host sometimes. My place isn't far. If you need, you can crash on my couch tonight." I hesitate. Every travel warning I've ever read flashes through my mind. But her kindness feels genuine, and my gut says I can trust her. We walk through winding streets, chatting about everything from favorite foods to travel fails. Her apartment is cozy, filled with plants and postcards from around the world. She makes tea, offers me a blanket, and even shares a homemade meal she'd just cooked for herself. Spicy noodles and fresh bread. That night, we talk for hours. She shares stories of her own travels, how she once got stuck in a sandstorm in Morocco, how a stranger in Istanbul helped her find her way. Her generosity isn't just about a couch, it's about community, about the unspoken bond between travelers who know what it's like to be lost and scared. The next morning, she walks me to my hostel, gives me a list of her favorite local spots, and insists on giving me her number just in case. That simple act of trust, hers and mine, turned a lonely night into the beginning of a friendship I still treasure. Looking back, I realize couchsurfing isn't just about saving money. Let's talk about food, the kind that makes you forget you're on a budget. I was wandering a maze-like market, lost in the colors and chaos, when my stomach started to grumble. I checked my wallet, just a handful of coins, barely $1's worth in local currency. I followed the smells, grilled spices, fresh bread, something frying in a battered pan, until I found a tiny stall sandwiched between two clothing vendors. The owner, an older woman with a warm smile, was serving up plates of steaming food to a line of locals. I pointed at what looked the most delicious, handed over my last $1, and hoped for the best. What I got was a revelation. A plate piled with fragrant rice, roasted vegetables, and a spicy sauce that set my mouth on fire in the best way. I sat on a plastic stool, surrounded by strangers, and honestly, it was the best meal I'd had in weeks. As I ate, the owner noticed me struggling with the spice and laughed. She sat down next to me, introduced herself as Amal, and soon her family joined us. They asked where I was from, what I was doing in their city, and before I knew it, I was sharing stories with 3 generations, kids, parents, grandparents, all at this tiny market stall. Amal insisted I come with them to their home for dinner. At first I hesitated. Was it polite to say yes? But her warmth was infectious, and her family's curiosity felt genuine. We squeezed into their old car, drove through winding alleys, and soon I was in a bustling kitchen, helping chop vegetables and learning recipes passed down for generations. That night's dinner was a feast: slow-cooked stews, homemade flatbreads, endless plates of fresh fruit. There was laughter, music, and the kind of hospitality that makes you feel like you've known these people forever. I learned more about their culture in one night than I could have in a month of sightseeing. The meal cost me just $1, but what I gained was priceless. A new perspective on generosity, gratitude, and the power of food to bring people together. It's a reminder that the best travel moments often come when you least expect them. If you enjoyed these stories, Don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw travel tales. And remember, sometimes the best travel memories come from the moments you never planned for. Whether it's surviving on $3 in a new city, finding a friend through couch surfing, or discovering a life-changing meal for just $1, travel has a way of surprising you. These experiences taught me that it's not about how much you spend, but how open you are to people, to adventure, to the unexpected. Every challenge on the road is just another story waiting to be told, and every stranger is a potential friend. Until next time, I'm Erin. Thanks for watching Budget Travelers Tales. It was late. The city lights blurred past the taxi window. My head throbbed from the long journey. My phone's battery blinked red. I scrolled through hotel apps, watching prices rise. Everything was too expensive except for one place. It promised a bed, a shower, and free Wi-Fi. That was all I needed, or so I thought. The neon sign grew closer. I was about to learn that sometimes the cheapest option comes with the highest cost. Rain soaked my jacket as I hurried to the entrance. The hotel's sign buzzed in and out like a dying firefly. The glass on the front door was cracked. I could see a faint light inside, but no one at the counter. I hesitated. My phone said 3% battery. I rang the bell. Nobody came. I rang again. Finally, a thin man appeared. He wore a threadbare sweater and gave me a crooked smile. "Room?" he said. His voice sounded tired too. I paid in cash, my last bit of local currency. The lobby was empty except for a dusty plant in the corner. The elevator doors squeaked open. I stepped inside, feeling the floor wobble beneath my feet. I clutched my bag and told myself I'd laugh about this tomorrow. But my laughter died before it began. The elevator groaned, carrying me upwards, higher into the unknown. Each ding sounded like a warning. I told myself it was just my imagination. When I stepped out, the hallway stretched before me, narrow, silent, and cold. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no people. Just the sound of rain hitting the pavement. The hotel sat between an abandoned shop and a dark alley. Streetlights flickered, casting strange shadows across the ground. I looked back at the entrance. The door was heavy and slow to close. It made a loud bang that echoed down the street. The windows were dirty, so dirty I couldn't see inside. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The building felt forgotten, as if no one had stayed here in years. Broken glass crunched under my shoes. I wondered if anyone would hear me if I called for help. My mind raced with questions, but I pushed them aside. I needed sleep. The wind howled, rattling the sign above. I told myself it was just the weather. I tried to breathe deeply, but my chest felt tight. The hotel seemed to watch me, waiting for me to make a mistake. I stepped inside, leaving the empty street behind. The silence was even louder than the storm. The hallway smelled of mold and something worse. The floor creaked with every step. Wallpaper peeled from the walls, revealing dark stains underneath. Old light bulbs cast a sickly yellow glow. I looked for cameras but saw none. No security, no safety. The fire exit sign hung crookedly, pointing to a door that wouldn't budge. I pressed on, clutching my key like a lifeline. My room was at the very end, near a broken window. I passed doors that looked scratched and dented. One door was covered in duct tape, another had a hole punched through it. I heard a TV playing behind one, but the rest were silent. It felt as if I was the only guest. My hand shook as I unlocked my door. The key stuck in the lock and I had to jiggle it free. Every instinct told me to leave. But where could I go? My feet carried me inside. I closed the door behind me, trying to block out the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The room was small, barely big enough for the bed. The air was damp, heavy with mildew. Torn curtains let in a sliver of orange streetlight. The carpet was sticky beneath my shoes. The sheets were stained and thin. A single bulb flickered overhead. I remembered the reviews I ignored. Unsafe, noisy at night. Now I was alone, trapped in the cheapest room in town. Night fell quickly. The wind howled louder, rattling the panes. The only light came from the street outside. I lay awake, every muscle tense. I heard movement in the corridor, slow, shuffling steps. Each footstep echoed, growing louder, then stopping right outside my door. My breath caught in my throat. Was someone there? I listened, heart pounding as the footsteps moved on. But soon they returned, again and again. I wanted to call someone, but my phone was dead. I felt trapped, pinned to the bed by fear. Every sound made me jump. The pipes groaned. A door slammed somewhere down the hall. My mind raced with the worst possibilities. I remembered the broken security cameras, the lack of staff. If something happened, would anyone know? Would anyone care? I stared at the door, willing the night to end. Each minute felt like an hour. The footsteps finally faded, but I knew the danger was not gone. It was past midnight when I heard the knock, soft at first, then louder. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. I didn't move. I barely breathed. The handle rattled just once. "Hello?" a voice whispered. Thin, shaky, scared. I froze. Should I answer? Should I hide? The knock came again. My blood ran cold. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching my backpack like a shield. Minutes passed. The footsteps retreated down the hall. I waited, afraid to move. Every shadow on the wall seemed to shift and grow. I felt completely alone. I thought about escaping, but the idea of stepping into that hallway terrified me even more. Finally, silence returned. I swore to myself that I would leave at first light. I would never risk my safety for a cheap night's sleep again. Sleep was impossible. I watched the clock, counting every second until dawn. The first light crept through the torn curtains. My heart leapt. I packed my bag in silence, careful not to make a sound. The hallway was empty, but I felt eyes on me. Every step felt dangerous. I hurried down the stairs, skipping the broken elevator. The lobby was still deserted. My footsteps echoed on the cracked tiles. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see what followed me from the night. The sun was rising as I pushed open the heavy front door. The cold air hit my face, but I felt alive. I rushed to the nearest cafe and ordered coffee, hands shaking. I watched the hotel from across the street, promising myself never to return. I had survived the night, but the fear lingered. I would never forget the feeling of being so close to danger, just to save a little money. I finished my coffee, grateful for the safety of daylight and the noise of the city. That night changed me. I learned a hard lesson. Safety always comes first. No deal is worth your peace of mind. The cheapest option can cost much more than money. It can cost your sense of safety, even your life. I think of the red flags I missed, the broken doors, the lack of staff, the eerie silence. If it feels wrong, trust your instincts. No room is worth risking your well-being. There are things you shouldn't bargain with, and safety tops the list. Now, when I travel, I read every review. I check for secure locks and working lights. I pay a little more for peace of mind. In the end, it's worth every penny. If you're tired, desperate, and alone, remember my story. Don't make the same mistake I did. Safety is priceless. Always. Travel wise. Travel safe. Your life is worth more than a bargain. I had imagined this bus stop as a quick pause, a place to stretch my legs and grab a snack before the next long ride. The bus station, tucked away in a quiet corner of a foreign city, was supposed to be only a stepping stone on my journey. My backpack was heavy, but my spirits were light. I was traveling on a budget, staying alert and keeping my plans tight. As my first bus pulled away, I glanced at the schedule board. My connection was due in less than an hour. I found a metal bench and sank into it, relieved that my timing seemed perfect. The evening air inside the station felt stale but safe, filled with the low buzz of tired travelers and staff closing up for the night. It was just after sunset. The sky beyond the dusty glass ceiling glowed with the last pink traces of daylight. My phone battery blinked at 15%, but I wasn't worried. Soon I'd be rolling onward to my next adventure. Little did I know, this stop would become the center of a night I'd never forget. One that would challenge my nerves, force me to trust strangers, and teach me something lasting about travel and life. The first sign of trouble was the sudden silence at the ticket counter. I stood in line, feeling the weight of my backpack digging into my shoulders. The clerk behind the glass frowned at her computer, then called out in the local language. I caught just enough of the words to understand. Bus cancelled. No refund. A knot formed in my stomach. I tried asking about alternatives, a taxi, a shuttle, even a later bus. The clerk just shook her head and pointed to a sheet of paper taped to the counter. No services until morning. My connection was gone, and so was my plan. I looked around for help, but the staff had already begun shutting down lights and locking doors. My hope faded with each click of the locks echoing down the tiled hallways. Other travelers grumbled or stared at their phones, while some simply left into the darkness beyond the station doors. Suddenly, I was stranded. No way forward, no way back, and no clear idea what to do next. I hugged my backpack close and tried to steady my breath, preparing for an unexpected night at the station. As the last bus rumbled away, the station changed. The cheerful hum turned into empty silence. The lights overhead flickered, two bulbs buzzing loudly before fading out entirely. Shadows stretched across the cracked linoleum floor, swallowing corners and empty benches. Shops that had been open minutes before now stood shuttered and dark. A vending machine blinked with an out-of-order sign. The only open door led to a bathroom at the far end, its light dim but alive. I counted maybe 6 people left, scattered across the room and sunk deep into their coats. The air felt colder, sinking into my bones. Every footstep echoed, sharp and lonely. A distant clang, maybe a dropped can or a falling sign, sent my heart racing. I glanced around, hoping for a friendly face, but everyone seemed distant, lost in their own worry. It was nothing like the safe, lively stop I had expected. It was now just a cavern of echoes and shadows, holding us all in quiet suspense. I chose a bench near the middle of the hall, trying to keep an eye on as much as I could. My phone had no signal, and my battery was almost gone. I stared at the dark windows, feeling the minutes crawl by. The silence made every sound, my own breathing, the creak of the bench, seem louder than it should. I tried to read a book, but the words blurred together. My thoughts spun. What if someone tried to steal my bag? What if the doors were locked in the morning? What if something worse happened? I felt very far from home, and every shadow looked menacing. The fear wasn't just about what could happen. It was the loneliness. I missed the comforting noise of busy places. Here, every small movement, a cough, a shoe scraping the floor, made me jump. I pulled my jacket tighter, wishing for morning. I told myself to stay calm, to be smart. But in that moment, fear grew with every tick of the clock. I realized I'd have to get through the night on my own, or so I thought. After an hour, I started noticing the others left behind. A man in a dark hood sat with his back to the wall, eyes hidden under a cap. He barely moved, just stared at the floor. Closer to the doors, a figure paced back and forth, muttering quietly. Their steps made a nervous rhythm in the empty hall. In the corner, an older woman hugged a suitcase, eyes wide and wary. She watched everyone, lips pressed tight. A young couple leaned against each other, whispering in a language I didn't know. They seemed just as unsettled as I felt. I wondered about their stories. Were they locals, or travelers like me? Did they have somewhere safe to go if the doors closed? The man in the hood caught my gaze for a moment, then quickly looked away. I realized that, like me, they all seemed uneasy, maybe even frightened. Knowing I wasn't the only one stuck brought a strange comfort, but it also raised new questions. Should I trust them? Or was it safer to stay alone? The lights had been flickering for an hour when they finally died. 1 second, the hall was weakly lit. The next, darkness swallowed everything. Someone gasped. I heard the old woman mutter a prayer, her voice thin with fear. For a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Then, somewhere in the building, footsteps broke the silence, fast, sharp, and running. I froze, clutching my backpack to my chest. The running stopped, then started again, closer this time. My mind raced through every story I'd ever heard about travelers in danger. A small light flickered on, a phone flashlight. It belonged to the pacing person, who now shined it around the room. The beam landed on the man in the hood, who flinched and pulled his cap lower. No one spoke. The tension felt thick as fog. In those minutes, fear became real. The unknown pressed in from all sides, and I wished desperately for daylight, or for someone to break the silence. It was the old woman who spoke first, her voice shaky but clear. "Is everyone all right?" she asked, her words echoing off the walls. The couple answered softly, and the pacing person turned their light toward her, nodding. The man in the hood finally looked up, his eyes anxious but open. I took a deep breath. "Does anyone want to sit together? It's a bit less scary if we're not alone." My words sounded braver than I felt, but saying them helped. The old woman smiled and shuffled closer, dragging her suitcase. The couple joined us, and the pacing person sat on the floor nearby, still holding the light. Even the man in the hood moved a little nearer, though he kept to the edge. We formed a loose circle in the dark, sharing the small pool of light. The silence changed. It felt less empty, more like a shield against whatever was outside. We didn't talk much at first, but just being together was enough. The fear faded a little, replaced by something warmer, solidarity.
Know you've been a good friend.
As the hours dragged on, we shared water, snacks, and quiet stories. The old woman talked about her grandchildren. The couple explained they were on their honeymoon, stranded just like me. The pacing person, a university student, admitted they'd been scared to speak. The man in the hood turned out to be a local, just trying to get home after a long shift. He offered some advice about the city, and even smiled once or twice. Each story made the shadows a little less frightening. We agreed to keep watch in turns, making sure no one drifted off alone. The simple act of sharing gave us strength. I realized how important it is to reach out, even when you feel scared or shy. Strangers became friends, and the unknown felt less threatening. By the time the first hint of dawn crept through the windows, we were a team. Together, we had made it through the night. When the station lights flickered back to life, relief was written on every face. The staff unlocked the doors, and soon buses began to arrive again. My journey would continue, but I was changed by the night. I learned that travel isn't always easy or glamorous, especially on a tight budget. Sometimes it means facing fear and uncertainty head-on. But in those moments, reaching out to others, no matter how different, can turn fear into friendship and danger into safety. Budget travel teaches more than just how to save money. It shows you the value of community, the strength of empathy, and the importance of sticking together. That night at the bus station reminded me, we are never truly alone if we dare to connect. If you dream of adventure, remember that the best stories aren't always the smoothest. Embrace the challenges, learn from every twist, and seek out real travel tales like this one. There's wisdom in the true, unpolished journeys, and you'll come out stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next.